So pit house, we're talking 500, 600, 580 is the first occupation here. This has been dated to around 600 and remind me to talk about dating. But so we have nomadic people, hunters, hunter-gatherers. We have them starting to stop in one place for a while because it's a good place to hunt and gather and utilize. The people who lived here, Ancestral Puebloans, took advantage of all the plants. So here we go. We have a pit house slightly dug into the ground, and this has got some real classic features that I want you to remember as we keep on going and keep on looking at the next few things. So we have 4 post holes in the corners set away from the edge a little. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And our pit house construction was not just this. This is ground level, and archaeologists dug down and said that was the original flooring. This is ground level, but it had a roof, right? Okay. Anyone seen a drawing or a picture of a pit house? If you're still at Mesa Verde this afternoon, I highly recommend you go over to Spruce Tree House and to the museum there, and they've got a nice little exhibit with drawings of the pit houses. But let's imagine our 4 beams coming up, and then so we have a straight beam like this, and then we have another one coming up from the corner like this, right? So we have these angles, and we get kind of a half pyramid type structure, and then we have a roof. So what happens is we have this half pyramid kind of frame with sturdier woods, right? Coming from here to here, here to here, angled up, and then covered with brush, and then a mudded, adobe'd over. Adobe is a kind of mud mixture. So we end up with this contained little half underground, half above ground structure, right? And why do you think they might have dug in? Why do you think they might have dug into the ground?
Keeps you cooler and warmer.
Very good, right? Keeps you cooler and warmer. In the summer here, it can get to the 90s. And in the winter, like this winter, we had 10 feet of snow, right? So were these people like us hanging out on the couch and watching TV? No, right? What were they doing when they were, mostly they were outside, right? They were hunting and gathering, except with 10 feet of snow or with hot weather. They came and they built shelters, right? Obviously, to stay warm and dry, okay? The center is a fire pit, all right? And then I just told you we had this half pyramid-like structure, and where's the door? Right? Out the top. Okay, a ladder with a door out the top. That's another feature. So these are kind of, here we are, the earliest time of settlement here, the earliest kind of architecture, and we have some features that, think about. Hearth and a roof entrance in and out the roof. The kind of square development. And then right over here, we have like a slab there and a slab there. What people think is this was not, this was where people hung out in inclement weather. They might have made tools, they might have wove their baskets, right? They just stayed warm. This little area over here has no hearth, nothing. That might have been for sleeping. Right, or storage, sleeping and storage. This was where they hung out and did stuff. Those might have been grinding pits, right, to grind corn. So I talked about hunter-gatherers, but we also have evidence of trade, and we know that at some point maize was brought up to the north from the south, and the Ancestral Puebloans who lived here started farming and started adapting the maize to high elevation, drier conditions. And so they had a kind of a dry land corn, maize, and they farmed. And so we have the first kind of where hunting, gathering, and farming all together. And that's what they were doing, which is a lot of work, right? And were they just sitting on the bare ground? No. At the time that people constructed these pit houses, archaeologists like to classify things and call people names and stuff. And the name applied to the people who inhabited and built this structure is called basket makers. Okay, the earliest settlers in the Four Corners region were called basket makers because they weren't making pottery yet, but they were weaving out of yucca, and we'll see the yucca, they were weaving baskets. Okay, and what else they did is they used pine resin to make their baskets waterproof, and they made mats. Okay, they wove yucca mats to sit on, and that was not only just yucca, they wove in rabbit fur and turkey feathers. So they domesticated two kinds of animals, dogs and turkeys, which is kind of interesting. Maybe the dogs help them hunt. You know, we know that dogs, we have working animals that help people. So we have at this point still semi-nomadic people. This residence may have been one family group, because when people are nomadic, they're not traveling in groups of 50. You know, even our tour bus is probably too many, maybe just half of our bus, right? So about 15 or so, and a small extended family group. So they were living and working in small extended families. This may have had 8 to 15 people occupying here. What you don't see is out and around here, there's other unexcavated pit houses. So what we start seeing is people go, oh, well, this is a great place to hunt and gather, and it's sheltered, and we might be near water, so let's build and stay here throughout the year. And then our neighbors, let's get our friends to come, or maybe our cousins. And so we start seeing groups of single family residents kind of in the same area. And they haven't all been excavated. This may have been, again, storage, not just for food, but maybe for daily objects and clothing and things like that. And this little scruffled area here is pack rats, right? Because rodents do get in and around. But also, questions. Does anyone have any questions right now? Because, yeah.
So there were numerous or several pit houses here. So like the maize growing, was that a communal activity? I mean, it wasn't like this is everybody worked together.
As far as we can tell, and what we know is it appears that the farming was communal.
Okay.
Good, that's a great question. More.
Have you found grave sites or anything? What did they do as far as the dead?
We'll talk more about burials. The Ancestral Puebloans that are associated with Mesa Verde had a couple of different ways of burials. Some were actually later on in the rooms underneath, but others were just out, and we have areas called middens where things were just thrown and put all together. So, and different depending upon the groups. Some of them were in a fetal position and with certain kinds of objects, and others were laid out, right? So, yeah.
So you said this was excavated, right? How did they first find this place?
That's a great question, and that one. So, yeah, what archaeologists do in Mesa Verde, like I told you, Montezuma County had, so many artifacts per square mile, more than anywhere. Like where I live over in Dolores, in a place I go hiking, I can just look down on the ground and find pottery sherds. And archaeologists do surveys, and so they know is there a clearing, is there an area that doesn't have as many plants, or the trees are younger, or is there a mound? And they do surveys, and so when they do a survey and they do a survey area, they surveyed after the fires. Now after the fires, they did surveys and they found 600 more sites, right? Which is kind of, so they'll do a grid, and they'll walk X amount, and then they'll dig a little hole and see if they find anything. So that's how they found these, right? Yeah, and then they dig down, and they have their ways of telling, the changes in the soil, and that's how they can tell that this was a surface that wasn't a natural surface, that it had been pounded down by human activity, etc. Yeah, great question.